Central Minnesota Sports Hub. It's the Morning Sports Desk, presented by Wadena's Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. Available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts, and streaming on YouTube.
It's the Morning Sports Desk on a Wednesday, the 12th of February. I'm CJ Baumgartner, Corey Tackman over there, powered by Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. It's the Morning Sports Desk. And Corey, we've talked about this for over a week now, but the day finally came yesterday. You guys got to go down to the Target Center, you and Zeke, to cover Menahga Unified Basketball State Tournament at the Target Center. A couple games there. Just to set the scene for us, what was yesterday like?
Well, it was pretty unbelievable a day. And going back, I just, even beforehand, like you mentioned, this had been in the works kind of behind the scenes for a couple of days, and then plans were put in place. And I do just want to, before I talk about the day, really thank Special Olympics Minnesota for being just so unbelievably accommodating for this situation. They answered all of our questions. We got phone numbers to call people when we got there so they could walk us through the tunnel and get us to where we needed to be. They were bringing us lunch. They had us set up with power, which is obviously very important to be able to broadcast. They were willing to be interviewed during the games and talk about what they do and what the state tournament means, not only for them with the Special Olympics, but what it means for the kids who are involved in unified sports. So a special thank you goes to them for just really allowing us to kind of not show up unannounced, but we didn't give them much lead time in what was a big event happening pretty quickly. And then we just like, hey, we're coming. Can you accommodate us in any way? And they accommodated us in like a big, big way. So thank you to them for that. As far as the event goes, Unified Special Olympics State Basketball, it was everything I hoped it would be. You walked in there. For crying out loud, when we got in, Proctor, CJ had probably 20 cheerleaders.
Wow.
And they had maybe like 50 to 75 kids in the student section there to cheer on. It was nuts, man. It was so cool. And I didn't see any, but they had to bring a whole, that's a
whole bus. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Osseo had cheerleaders there and a bunch of them. It was as like a supportive of an atmosphere as I think you would stereotypically expect from a Special Olympics event, but it was unbelievably heartwarming to just kind of see it in person. Everybody's there cheering for each other and rooting for each other. And it's not just the schools and the kids that are wearing your team colors. They're rooting for everybody, and they're rooting for big buckets. And then also it's basketball. So, hey, rebound, box out, play defense, move the ball, hustle back on D. Like all of the basketball things you grow accustomed to hearing are also happening at these games. And I just loved it. I just loved every single minute of it. Of course, we were there to cover the Menahga Braves, who finished 4th in Division A. Congratulations to them. Had a pretty great experience working with coordinator Isaiah Hahn and the rest of the team. And we met with the team and those kids between games. We got a couple basketballs signed. One is in the back that we're gonna just have on display because, like we talked about, we were the first radio broadcast ever at this state tournament. So we had it was Zeke's idea. It was an awesome idea to have the Menahga team sign that basketball for us. We're going to have on display here at the radio station to kind of commemorate that moment for us. But also want to congratulate the Pillager Huskies, who were in the Division B tournament. They finished 4th as well. And it was awesome, man. The opportunity to spend time with the team, with that Menahga team, and chat with them and chat with the coaches and some of the parents. And it was everything that I hoped it would be. And Zeke and I talked about it on the drive home, and it was just special, man. It was just a special occasion. We were really glad to be a part of it. Those kids worked so hard to be able to earn the right to go to the state tournament. There's 350 schools in the state that participate in unified sports. Only 8 schools in the entire state are at that state tournament. And there's a lot of different sports that they play, but for this particular one, they put in a lot of hard work to be able to get there and get that payoff. And state tournaments are special no matter what. And again, to be a part of it in the way that we were a part of it, and for the first time ever, in terms of what the Special Olympics got, huge payoff for us.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, want to thank Special Olympics Minnesota. They were great. When we first reached out, they were ecstatic that we wanted to go down and do it. And they, like you said, kind of rolled out the red carpet for us on a very short notice, and were very accommodating, giving us whatever we needed to get set up and get you guys down there. They gave you guys a great spot, gave you guys everything you needed, and were able to get that game going. And more importantly, and they would say this too, those kids got to have a really awesome memory. And, we hear it all the time when we cover state tournaments for the Minnesota State High School League state tournaments is, we hear from coaches afterwards when we follow a team, they go, hey, thanks for the coverage, because you make those guys feel like pros. You make them feel like the players they watch and listen, in the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, whatever it is. And that's the same feeling for those kids too. You get to provide that experience for those kids and give them an opportunity to hear their names on the radio. And, we've clipped the interview with them, and that interview is out where we talk with the whole team. Go back and listen to it. They talked about what their favorite moments are and getting to play and things like that. And even those little bits we've put out there, the communities have been so ecstatic to see that stuff. And that's the fun part for us, is covering these kids in a state tournament. So to get to do it for the unified basketball state tournament is just a really cool cherry on top, and seeing how basketball was played and stuff like that. And like Corey, one more last question, then we'll kind of move on, because we have a lot of other high school stuff to talk about. But what was the atmosphere like compared to, like a basketball game? Because I was able to listen to a little bit here and there of both games, and it sounds like everybody is just super supportive of each other, no matter what jersey they're wearing.
Yeah, no, I mean, the crowds obviously aren't enormous. We saw last week pictures of Menahga in Bemidji. There were a lot of people at that game, which was spectacular. And when you put that many people in the Target Center, it doesn't feel like as much. So there's not a lot of people. It's not like an overwhelming experience that way. But the best way I would describe it is and I think you will appreciate the reference here, the comparison. But like, I grew up playing combative sports, right? In football, it's about you stopping me and me stopping you, and we're going to butt heads until somebody kind of exerts their will on the other person. In basketball, it's the same thing. In baseball, they're combative. They're one kind of my brothers were runners. And I remember the first time going to watch one of their, they did cross country and they did track. And I know that was the same for your brother. Your brother did the same thing. And the first time I went to a cross country meet, and then first time I went to a track meet, I was like, everybody just loves everybody around here. Like everyone will congratulate the winner of the race. The winner of the race will be frustrated with themselves because maybe it wasn't their best race ever. And then someone who comes in last in the race sets a personal best in that particular race. And all 8 runners, if it's a single race, or all 32 runners, if it's a relay, they'll go out of their way to high five that person for setting a personal best. Those running sports are very supportive, and it was that times 10 at this tournament, at this Unified Special Olympics basketball tournament. Everybody is rooting for everybody, not just the team you're there to support and your kids or your classmates or your friends. You want the little 7th grader for the other team to make one from Steph Curry range more than anything else. It's the best. I loved every minute of it, CJ.
All right, awesome. And hopefully Menahga goes back for a 4th straight year so we can get down there and cover it again.
Be so cool.
That'd be awesome. All right, we got a whole bunch of other high school sports accomplishments to go over here. Before we do that, I want to just give a quick update on some wrestling that took place last night. Now, depending on which section you're in, varied on how much wrestling happened, but let's swing on over to section 8A for wrestling. These matches kind of took place in the host sites. So Frazee was able to beat Crookston. Frazee was the 1, Crookston the 8. They advanced 66-12. Fertile Beltrami the 4, taking on Mahnomen-Waban the 5. And it was Mahnomen-Waban getting the win 42-26. So they're going to play Frazee at 6 o'clock on Friday night from Fertile Beltrami High School as the neutral site. On the other side of the bracket, number 2, Foston Bagley beats Barnesville 54-18. And then we have a 3-6 matchup. UNC Warriors trying to defend their section title. They get a 57-14 win over BGMRTC. Now, who is that big co-op, you ask? Well, that's Badger Greenbush Middle River Tri-County High School. Kind of all making.
Oh, Tri-County.
All factoring in there. Wrestling co-ops are always fascinating.
Who's Tri-County? That's new, isn't it?
That's a good question. Now I kind of want to look that up. Tri-County. While I'm doing that, looking at some other brackets here, because that was so. Bagley Foston is going to play UNC, a matchup with UNC, 6 o'clock, Fertile Beltrami High School on Friday night. Frazee, Mahnomen-Waban on the other side, and then they'll match up in the championship, the winners of those 2 matches there. Going to 7A wrestling, and this is one where there's going to be some heavyweights in here. In the pigtail matchup between the 8 and 9 seed, Crosby Ironton comes away with a 40-36 victory as the 9 seed against BCLB. Corey, who is BCLB, you ask? It's
Border County West.
Black Duck, Cass Lake Bina, Killier, Buganay Yashig High School.
Buganegashig.
There you go.
Nice.
So that's a big co-op there, kind of with all those schools in the literal neck of the woods. Crosby Ironton then, Rangers, you get blanked by Staples Motley, 76-0.
Yeah.
That matchup, Staples will do that to you. And then Walker Hackensack Akeley Nevis took on Royalton Upsala, and an upset there from the Royalton Upsala crowd as they get a 49-24 win in the 5-4 matchup. And they are going to take on Staples Motley at Holdingford High School Friday at 5 o'clock. And then on the other side of the bracket, we have Aiken and Nashwauk Keewatin Greenway. And Aiken comes away with that victory. There's no score there. No score here as well, but Holdingford comes out on top. And then Mille Lacs beats Ogilvie on the 3-6 matchup, 50-21. So Mille Lacs versus Holdingford on one side of the bracket. 5 o'clock start for that match on Friday. Also 5 o'clock, Staples Motley, Royalton Upsala. And the winners of those 2 matches will play each other for the section title game on Friday. And I think it's worth mentioning, Corey, a little sneak peek on a broadcast schedule later this week. We are sending Kyle and Dan to Holdingford on Friday to go cover those matches for Staples Motley on KNSP, the Fan 98.5 FM and AM 1430, because that should be a little fun night of wrestling there.
Should be an unbelievable night of wrestling. Tri-County High School is in Carlstead. Helm, Carlstead, Lake Bronson, and Strandquist are the communities that make up Tri-County Public School.
How could we forget? Cool. Interesting.
Yeah, I had no idea.
First time I heard of that. So you learn something new every day listening to the Morning Sports Desk powered by Pizza Ranch.
Honestly, shout out MSD.
Shout out. You should really get yourself hooked on it.
You guys do good work over there. I've always heard.
I think that they do a lot. I think my life was changed the moment I started getting hooked on MSD.
They can do some stuff.
They can do some stuff. I think that's the biggest compliment anybody's ever given this podcast.
Where the government was the first to kind of issue out the MSD on a trial basis without anybody knowing.
That's for a different podcast, I guess. The MSD files.
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun. It's like got an Unsolved Mysteries kind of vibe. Section 6A wrestling. Wadena Deer Creek beat Otter Tail Central yesterday in a pigtail matchup at WDC Elementary School, and it was a 40-28 victory for the Wolverines. They will take on the top seed of Bertha Hewitt, Verndale, Parker's Prairie. That's in Pelican Rapids at 3:30 on Friday. Osakis will take on Border West in the 4-5 matchup. And then on the other side, West Central area, Ashby, Brandon, Evansville, the 2 seed will take on the 7-seeded Pelican Rapids. And then Long Prairie, Gray Eagle, Browerville is the 3 seed. They will take on New York Mills, the 6 seed. And those matches are all set to be played. It's going to be a long day of wrestling there on Fridays. They kind of hash out that whole 1 through 8 bracket there in that one. So there's your local wrestling catch up. And again, we'll get some coverage of Staples Motley wrestling in that section over there in 7A on Friday night. So listen on KNSP, The Fan. More info can always be found, Corey, at Sports Cow on Facebook.
Moo.
Okay, we got 5 or 6 kind of headlines in local sports that we should catch you up on. Christian Hoagie became the all-time leading scorer in Pillager last week in their matchup against Verndale. He officially becomes the all-time Husky leader in points, so congrats to him. A couple other scoring milestones. Ellie Kep of Parker's Prairie last night got her 1,000th career point. Congrats to her. Last week, Max Lake got career point number 1,000 for the Sabika Trojan boys basketball team. On Friday night, Kobe Snyder got his 1,000th point for Wadena Deer Creek in their matchup against Bertha Hewitt. Congratulations to all those guys and gals on the points milestone there. A couple commitment news headlines here. Bjorn Anderson, the runner from Perham, announced he is going to run at SDSU. That is not San Diego State University, Corey. That is South Dakota State. I've always said Brookings is the San Diego of the Midwest. So how could we forget?
Yeah, no, I think people in Brookings think that too.
People in Brookings think very highly of Brookings.
They should. Why wouldn't you? It's
like people in Fargo think very highly of Fargo in the same way.
Hey, I mean, why wouldn't you? You're from Bertha Hewitt. You think pretty highly of that place too, don't you?
Yeah, sure.
You're allowed to be proud of that, of where you're from. I got no problems with that.
Yeah. Don't you dare say a bad word, Corey. You're not welcome in the San Diego of Central Minnesota, Bertha Hewitt. So,
no, I'm all about Bertha Hewitt. I'm all about Bertha Hewitt. I might think Fargo's smelly, but that's
only because their dump is in the middle of town.
To each their own.
That's Fargo does things differently, I guess. Okay, Jalen Lilquist is going to go play volleyball at Augsburg University. So congrats to Jalen Lilquist as well.
Follows her sister Jessica, who played at Augsburg.
Once an Augie, always an Augie, I guess. Runs in the family. Congrats to all those players and athletes on kind of these on these local milestones. Wish we'd have more time to talk about it, but gosh darn it, Corey, like we talk about when a player hits 1,000, like 2 more hit it within the same week. They always come in bunches. They never equally spread out. We can give them each a little more dedicated time, but it's a lot of stuff to cover. So congrats.
Good.
And by the way, you can see that we shared all of those accomplishments on Sports Cow on Facebook. So once again, follow Sports Cow on Facebook and you get up to the minute local sports news. Corey?
Moo?
Moo.
Okay, good.
Moo. You were a little nervous there, but we got a moo in.
Yeah, I zoned out for half a second, so I wasn't sure. I was like, I think I heard him say Sports Cow. I would have said moo to whatever it is you were saying. And
it wouldn't have mattered. Moo would have just been accepted. When I was in high school one time, and this will kind of segue into our state sports stuff. When I was in high school, I was in chemistry class, and there were 2 types of chemistry you could have taken. One is regular chemistry, which is the tougher version. It's more like if you're going to go to college, you probably should take that class. If you plan on going to a 4-year university, you should probably plan on taking that one. If you're hey, I need to get a chemistry credit. I need to it's a little tougher for me. You take applied chemistry, which is still still learn about chemistry, but it's just a little they kind of slow it down for you. It's a little more able to kind of help you out. I took regular chemistry because I was well, I probably should challenge myself a little bit. Mistake, because more like chemistry, because I had no idea what was going on.
Boo, terrible pun. I hate it.
But anyway, so I was zoning out in class one day because chemistry I was a communications major in college, Corey. It all goes over my head.
It was chemistry, no offense.
And I was sitting there zoned out, in class, and all of a sudden I just look, and there's one of my best friends from high school just next to me in class, and I was just like this, trying to listen to a lecture, and just like radio static between my ears with stuff. And all of a sudden, one of my best friends from high school is just looking at me going, 6, 6, 6, like whispering. I'm like, what's he doing? And then I look, and my chemistry teacher is staring right at me. Like, he asked me a question.
Yeah.
I was zoned out for God knows how long. Well, it probably wasn't that long, but it was like 5 to 10 seconds. And in class, that's long enough to feel like an eternity. And I'm just sitting there, and it's like 6. And they're looking like, 6? It's like, yes. And then just moved on. Like, I was just like, and I leaned over to him like, thank you. But I mean, it didn't matter. Everybody knew what was going on. It's just like, move on. This guy's.
There's a great internet meme of a kid who's zoning out in class. Teacher asks him a question, and the buddy next to him gives him an answer, but it's the wrong answer. And the kid yells out the wrong answer. And he's like, I've never felt that thrill, and I've never laughed harder in my entire life than when I gave my friend the wrong answer and he blurted it out.
It's an old College Humor video is where I saw it. And it's like back when College Humor, like it was legit like a College Humor, because the guy's stuck in a lecture. He's bored. And the professor's asking him a question. And his buddy's like, 4. He's like, 4? And he's like, you think the answer of why the South seceded from the Union in the Civil War was 4? And he leans over like, hey, you buddy. Like, and his buddy's just like smirking, like, got him.
Best.
That's the best. Corey, before we talk into some state sports, we have some news on the Wolves ownership struggle. We have a winner for now. And also the Twins are seeing London. They're seeing underpants because they're going France with their next signing.
Ish, you're 0 for 2 today. Sorry.
Before we get into that, let's talk about a spot that's always a 10 out of 10, and that's the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade in Wadena.
Yeah, and today it would actually be a 20 out of 10 because on a Wednesday at Pizza Ranch, it is double points day, and they're talking a little dessert. Wanting to know, what is your favorite dessert at the Pizza Ranch? Is it that cactus bread? Maybe it's the chocolate chip cookie. Whatever it is, you can enjoy them on the Pizza Ranch buffet today and earn 2 times the points on your Ranch Rewards purchase. Of course, you can order that dessert for takeout. Don't forget, not only Ranch Rewards, but FunZone Rewards when you use the FunZone Arcade. Pretty big opportunity if you get yourself signed up and refresh. You need to refresh 3 times before the end of April, your card, and you get 1,000 free tickets or points or whatever going your way. Stop into the Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade to take advantage of the Ranch Rewards, of the FunZone Rewards, of the delicious cactus bread or chocolate chip cookies on the buffet. And when you're there, say thanks. Thanks for the delicious food, and thanks for the morning sports desk.
Thank you.
Moo.
Moo.
We're going to have to rebrand the morning sports desk, aren't we, to the Sports Cow podcast?
Maybe.
Hashtag moo.
Hashtag moo. It'd get good brand synergy. It'd have good streamline. Brand recognition.
I'd like to double back on that Sports Cow idea. Moo.
All right, Corey, a little state sports news here. We talked about it on Monday that a decision was coming out, and it really took till end of the day. Now, the only reason we knew it was coming out on Monday was because the court basically said that they were going to make their decision on February 10th by end of day. But it could have came any time before. That's just how long it took for the panel to come to their decision. And it took till about 4:00 on a Monday. So I don't know where this happened. I'm guessing it happened in Minnesota, this court case. But they pretty much waited until end of day Monday, the very last possible second, sneaking in this ruling, which as somebody who gets stuff done at the last minute, I do respect. But in the interest of generating news, I was waiting all day for this announcement. And like we talked about on Monday, it was kind of the one we thought was coming. A-Rod and Lori have won the dispute in a 2-1 ruling that gives them a pathway to buy the Minnesota Timberwolves. Now the only thing that's left is the NBA Board of Governors, which is just all the other owners, officially approving the sale and allowing them in. So in other words, the judges ruled that, hey, this deal is still binding. They didn't violate any terms of the agreement by a 2-1 ruling, and they moved on. Corey, kind of any gut reaction? I mean, this didn't really surprise me. It kind of felt like this was just a Hail Mary attempt by Glenn Taylor to keep the Wolves. But, anything that kind of stands out to you, or is it more just get out of town, Glenn Taylor?
No, I feel surprised isn't the right word, but it definitely felt more like it's the Timberwolves and it's Glenn Taylor and it's the thing that'll never go away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just like zombie Glenn Taylor and the Timberwolves, and how could we just hold on to this and delay the growth and progress of a franchise? It just felt like, why wouldn't it be Glenn Taylor? It seemed just as likely it could have been Glenn Taylor. Like, the valuation of that franchise changed pretty drastically with the advent of Anthony Edwards. Ever heard of him? And I think that's a fair, like, it's for him to be like, my business isn't valued at this anymore. This is no longer that I can understand that perspective on that argument. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Like, he could probably have sold the Wolves for like $500 million or something like that. Like, it's a crazy.
Yeah, it's different. It's different than it was when that process started. The value of that team and that franchise. That being said, you kind of got unlucky. And unlucky doesn't mean you get screwed or you're getting, you know what I mean?
Right.
Unlucky means you just had the worst possible timing ever.
He had a little buyer's remorse. He bought a home in 2006. You know what I mean? Like that kind of buyer's remorse.
Yeah, so but a seller's whatever.
Seller's remorse is probably the better way to word it.
Whatever it is. And no, I think everybody's probably ready for new leadership at the helm of the Minnesota Timberwolves franchise. Who knows what it's going to mean down the line? We don't know. We don't know that they're going to be good. We don't know that they're going to be bad. What we do know is that Glenn Taylor is historically one of the worst owners in NBA history.
Might be the worst. Like, he's up there.
I mean, he's not Donald Sterling.
That's okay.
But he's like, it's bad. It's a pretty infamous resume.
We don't need to rank the list, but he is certainly on the list. And I think that in of itself is just not an ideal spot when you consider alienating the franchise's superstar, when you consider the fact of how he kind of meddled and ruined the Wolves in 2004, of course, with the penalties and the contract tampering and all that kind of stuff. And then just picking the wrong person to lead the organization at every step for like a decade was just not ideal. Just kind of.
And it's important to note that Laurie and A-Rod were instrumental in bringing in Connolly.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't a Glenn Taylor thing.
Right. And now you could say Glenn Taylor hired Rosas, who drafted, Ant and McDaniels and brought in Nas and brought in Finch and some of this stuff.
Sure. Blind squirrel.
Right. And that's what it kind of goes more to, he's gotten so many wrong that, this is more just like you kind of stumbled into Anthony Edwards more than you stumbled in, all that kind of stuff. But that being said, Glenn Taylor is out. The Star Tribune, I saw Suhan put an article out there. It's like, well, now you're losing your franchise stability. And it's like, oh, yeah.
What stability?
Yeah, stability with ownership. Hey, Siri, who owns the Star Tribune again? That'd be Glenn Taylor. Oh, okay.
I mean, technically the Leaning Tower of Pisa was stable.
Right.
You know what I mean? But like, it was also inching closer and closer to falling over until they had to do some work on it.
Right.
I mean, like, technically it's everything's stable till an earthquake hits. And Glenn Taylor was the earthquake on that franchise for a long time. What do you mean stability?
If you mean stability by the fact that he was going to keep the Wolves in Minnesota because he's a Minnesota guy and like had no interest in moving the franchise, sure. And is there a risk that Laurie and Rodriguez would move the team? Sure. But the NBA is in a growth mindset more they are in a relocation mindset.
They're not moving. I don't know where this is coming from.
And by the way, the other thing too is maybe when they first bought the team and it was a dumpster fire and Rosas got fired because he was messing around with people at work and all this kind of, and all that, like you could say like maybe there's a case because fan apathy, this and that. But with the Wolves making Western Conference Finals, with Anthony Edwards, like they are so successful now, you can't like even if they wanted to move the team, they're not going to be able to because they have no reason to do so now.
You can't, they don't move teams because they suck. That's not how it works. That is not how moving.
You have apathy, which means people don't show up to your games, which means
I understand that. The NBA doesn't care about that. They're strategically located geographically in the biggest markets in the country. Minneapolis is a top 15 market in the country.
Especially in their part of the world.
Going away from it's not happening. The reason everyone gets nervous because the Twins were going to move because they were going to shutter the Twins. That was because it was Bud Selig who owned the Milwaukee Brewers. Who was like, well, we got to get rid of somebody. And it should have been the Brewers, but teams in Minnesota are not moving. The professional sports are done with that. The only thing is when there's current terrible ownership. Oakland, for example, the Oakland A's are the recent example. Seattle before that screwed the pooch on that city of Seattle. Seattle needs a team. It's just that simple. And I get that there's spots to go, but these leagues are now in a spot where expanding is the thing that makes sense. They're not moving.
They're going to expand before they relocate.
I am willing to have this played back on me when the Timberwolves get moved.
By the way, remember the LA Vikings? Remember when that was a thing?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, the North Carolina Twins, the Carolina Twins, and stuff like that.
And the Red McComb's going to move the Vikings, but we're talking about a different era now. 1998 was almost 30 years ago. Like that was a long time ago. And Red McComb's was a loose freaking cannon. They're not moving teams.
No, but the North Stars moved back in the day.
Do you know why they moved from San Diego? Because they were redundant. The Padres or the Chargers. It was redundant to have them there. That's why they moved.
They moved because they wanted a team in the LA market. LA already had a stadium, and the owner wanted a new stadium.
Yes. Now, should there be a team in Oakland? Yeah, but Vegas is very, very, very important to these
leagues.
I just don't. I don't know why Minnesota sports fans are hung up in their teams moving. Are you
saying Minnesota sports fans are more captivated on what could go wrong instead of actually just enjoying sports?
I don't know where this comes from. I don't understand. I think we're just scared from contraction talks still.
Yeah, no, that's fair. The biggest thing too is Glenn Taylor basically kind of said we are you give the statement of like, oh, we're not excited about the ruling, yada, yada, yada. I don't know what an appellate process would look like if there even is one. I don't know if he's just done or if maybe Glenn Taylor is now going to kind of use the last of his will to, instead of fighting it in court, to then fight or to, talk with the owners around the league and try and cancel the sale or something like that. I don't quite know what his next move is. Maybe he just gives up and takes his ball and goes home. I don't know. But either way, Laurie and Rodriguez owning the team will be interesting. They've done a very good job of putting out PR. Laurie and Rodriguez have done a great job of that. One, because they're younger and they understand the importance of that. But two, they also understand and just kind of lucked into the fact that the fan base hates the current owner. So if you just put out a bunch of happy talk to all the other media outlets, they'll lap it up and the fan base will lap it up. So talks of like, redoing TV deals and talks of a new stadium in Minneapolis that would be privately funded. Like these are stuff that you can throw out there now to kind of red meat to the fan base of like, get excited for us to walk in with this hero's welcome, when really the hero's welcome is just that they're not Glenn Taylor. And it's the same thing with the Twins, by the way. We, in 3 months, by the 4th of July, Corey, as Minnesota sports fans, we could be free of Glenn Taylor and the Polads as owners. Imagine how awesome that's going to be.
Well, and we're going to know before the season starts who the new owners are. So, I mean, financially speaking, we won't be free. It'll be later, but I mean, we're talking about KG being in the stadium.
We're talking about KG's jersey hanging from the rafters.
And what a way to like, do you do it this year still? Do you wait for next year and do a little rebrand with Anthony Edwards and kick off?
The rebrand is definitely coming.
Like a home opener with a KG retirement right out of the gate to start
right before a playoff series.
Holy balls. It's the best, man. He is still with Ant nipping at his heels. KG's the most important Timberwolf ever. Do him right. Do right by him.
By the way, once again, everybody has that clip of Kevin Garnett on his podcast thing. It was like last week. You think I like Glenn Taylor? Anyway, it's a very fun clip. Go find it on the internet because he's a little.
You don't have to. You know exactly how that sounded and what he said.
We know exactly what it was. I imagine right before a first round playoff series, the first home game at the Target Center, and Kevin Garnett's jersey hangs from the rafters and he's in the crowd, like hyping up the crowd before the beginning of the game. The roof is going to blow off that place. Like, it would be amazing.
I can't wait.
It'd be awesome. Okay, one last thing. For the Minnesota Twins, they signed first baseman Ty France to a 1-year deal worth about $1 million. It's non-guaranteed.
Why did you say it like that? Is that how it's said?
No, it's Ty France.
Okay.
But you got to
I was like, have I been pronouncing it wrong?
You got to get a baguette. And then you have to smoke a cigarette off of a balcony while looking out at a cobblestone street.
But I am tired.
Yeah. You have a pessimistic outlook at anything, and the moment anybody confronts you on anything, you surrender. So that's the ideal. One world war set the entire narrative. France used to be talked about for their mighty military, and then they got trounced in World War II, and everybody just thinks of them as cowards.
America doesn't exist without France.
Mm-hmm. And France also doesn't exist without America. So I'd say that's
America does exist without France. But at that particular moment, yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, no, that France, it's fun. They don't care. It's no wonder though why when you go there, they're pretty grumpy to everybody because the whole world just likes to kick them.
The whole world, like Merriam-Webster or like I think it was the AP. The AP when they were releasing their news guide, like Associated Press, like this is how you they released their grammar kind of rule book for how things should be. And they were talking about, they were talking about slurs or something like that, or like ways to make fun of somebody. And then they go, the French. And then they just throw that as like an example. And it's like, okay, guys, geez. Mm-hmm. I guess saying the French is a hate word. So this podcast has been demonetized. But beside that fact, Ty France is a first baseman, right-handed hitter, about a 650 to 700 OPS over the last couple of years. Not super great against lefties. Like he is just kind of he is a body that you bring into camp to be a veteran option to challenge Jose Miranda. Because Jose Miranda, I think, is still your opening day first baseman. I don't think this move changes that. I don't think he's coming in. I mean, he could earn it, I think, if he plays well in camp, if France does, or if Miranda gets hurt. But I think Miranda is the odds-on favorite to be the opening day first baseman for this team. And I think it's just a veteran bat to push him and to be there and just kind of help him out and stuff like that, kind of setting a floor for this team. For those who, he was not a great first baseman last year, was France. He had like a -12 defensive runs saved metric. He, first base-wise, he's not like the best, but he's there to push Miranda. And it's a 1-year non-guaranteed contract, which basically means like, it's a major league contract, but it's as close to when a guy gets a minor league contract with an invite to spring training. Like you're on the 40-man roster, but we are not guaranteeing you a spot on the 26-man roster on opening day kind of vibes. He's a guy that's had a couple down years, but could just be a nice, at his best, could be a nice little right-handed hitting first baseman to kind of help you out and kind of be a backup for Jose Miranda.
Okay, so that my question when I saw this and heard this is there if we want to look kind of in the gray area of this, because all of that is like the black and white of this situation, is some of this signing maybe an indication of what the Twins think about Miranda? Like, is this a warning shot towards Miranda? Like, hey man, it's time to do this, or you know.
I think
the pot situation, you know what I mean?
Right. I think it's not quite to like the full, do it or get off the pot kind of thing, but I think it's definitely warmer than just, hey man, it's yours. Go take the job. The job is yours if you can earn it. But just so you know, like we have a veteran here, and if you struggle, like
he was an all-star 2 seasons ago.
Miranda?
No. France.
Yeah, with the Reds, I think, or with the
maybe I think he was an all-star.
Yeah, some
ago.
Right. And he's seen better days in his career. He didn't have a great start with Cincinnati or with Seattle, got traded to Cincinnati and didn't have necessarily the best time there either. But I mean, he's a veteran who's been around the block. He's done it before. And yeah, I think it's just Jose Miranda, the job is yours, but we're not just going to give it to you. Like you have to, it's when, it's a little bit different circumstances, but Batista coming in lieu of Bartlett or something like, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff where it's like, here's a veteran just to set a floor for you. And this is the bar you have to clear to consistently get your name in. And I think it's also just backup in case Miranda gets hurt, because Miranda has been hurt each of the last few years. I mean, in 2023, he pretty much missed the whole year because he was hurt. His body wore down in 2022 and stuff like that. So I think it's just more of it's that
I'm interested in though, and wonder about, because didn't we just talk about how the Twins have this glut of people who are kind of positionless? Like, what does this mean for Eddie Julian? Like, isn't Eddie Julian the backup at first?
I think that's the other thing. I think this says more about Eddie Julian and the kind of thought of like.
So that's like, it makes me feel like this signing, like there's some franchise trust happening in some of these guys who have come up Twins. You know what I mean? Because otherwise you wouldn't sign him. Like, who cares if Miranda gets hurt? Because Eddie Julian can go play first base, and then you're fine. But oh wait, we don't know if Eddie Julian can stay healthy, and he struggled mightily at points, and they just don't. They don't know what they have, so they're bringing in a pro. It feels to me, without knowing anything, like the organization saying, we don't trust some of you.
Well, right, exactly. And the other thing is Julian last year, like you said, had a real bad sophomore slump. Miranda's health has been up and down. And more importantly, even if one of those guys, let's say Miranda's hurt and Julian's slumping, then who's your first baseman? Nobody. So this is just to kind of smooth out the major league depth without having to kind of pluck some career AAA or quadruple A player to kind of do stuff. It's a very low wattage move, but it's the Twins, and they've only made, a very small handful of signings this offseason. So there's not, in a normal offseason, just be like, oh yeah. And they brought in Ty France to kind of like just help out the first base room. Yeah. But when you've only signed 3 free agents of a major league value, then it's every move is like, okay, well, how does this impact this and this and that? Because there just hasn't been much movement. But there you go. Pitchers and catchers report tomorrow. Tomorrow. Although apparently, according to Phil Miller of the Star Tribune, most of them are already there, but the first kind of full team pitcher and catcher workout is tomorrow. So, or Friday or something like that. So it's coming. And we'll get kind of more information as things get closer there. So that wraps things up. It's the Morning Sports Desk powered by Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade on a Wednesday, the 12th of February.
Powered by Wadena's Pizza Ranch and FunZone Arcade. Follow the Morning Sports Desk on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And watch every show on YouTube.